All right, shifting our focus to another big breaking news that we are tracking. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has warned that Washington could increase secondary tariffs on India. This is the big breaking news that we are tracking. It looks like Donald Trump is back with his tariff tantrums. It seems like Donald Trump has now warned. In fact, his U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has warned that Washington could increase secondary tariffs on India. Remember, viewers, this comes after President Donald Trump had made it clear that it's not just going to be 25%, but a culminative of 50% tariffs on India. And now, US has warned of escalating tariffs on India. In fact, this US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has come up with the warning. He has made it very, very clear that Washington could increase secondary tariffs on India. Remember, viewers, this comes just hours before Trump is set to meet President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. All right, let's cut straight across to senior journalist Eric, who joins me live on this bulletin. Eric, thank you for speaking to Republic. Of course, Trump has now raked up the tariff tantrum on India. In fact, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has come up and has warned that Washington could increase secondary tariffs on India. What more updates are you picking up on your end?
So there's a bigger picture involved here. As we know, the UN General Assembly is going to meet in September. And we know that President Trump and Prime Minister Modi are going to have some talks at that meeting. I would assume that tensions will die down once they meet. They seem to have a pretty good relationship. So I would think that is something that we can look forward to kind of ease those tensions. President Trump is always trying to get the upper hand when he's going into negotiation tactics. And that's what this is. It's a negotiation tactic to force India to the table and get a better deal done at the end of the day.
Eric, we are also coming to know is that U.S. President has said, and this warning comes after the U.S. President said that it all depends on the meeting that he is going to have with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, in Alaska.
That's correct. That meeting in Anchorage, Alaska is going to be important and crucial to the India trade talks, because there needs to be some kind of conclusion to that war. The goal is to choke Russia financially, to keep them from being able to fund a further conflict. Ukraine is in a tough situation. They have a lot of areas that are just in shambles, and Russia continually comes to the table and they want to talk about peace, but at the end of the day, every time President Trump turns around, Russia bombs something. So that's frustrating for President Trump, and it's frustrating for the American people too, as we want to see that conflict come to an end, and then we can focus on our international and geopolitical stances on things, as opposed to worrying about this war that has been ongoing far too long.
Well, absolutely, Eric. Do stay with us. I'll keep coming back to you. Viewers, I'm also being joined by my colleague Krutat, who's live with us from the newsroom. Krutat, of course, this looks like another strong-arm tactic of President Trump, where the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has warned that Washington could increase secondary tariffs on India, provided the meeting between Trump and Putin. It depends on how the meeting between Trump and Putin goes. What are the latest updates that you're picking up?
Indeed, Atra, and it is the detail is in the devil is in the details rather. And if you look at the wording, how he has phrased it, he's saying that there could be an increase in the secondary sanctions. So preliminarily, there was a 25% tariff that was put on India, and subsequently a 25% additional penalty, as Trump called it earlier. Now that they are referring to as secondary sanctions or secondary tariffs, or another 25% was put up. So this is only talking about the second 25% component, which he expects could go up if the meeting in Alaska does not come properly out. And what this tells us is that this 25% tariff put on India is not really about India buying Russian oil, but it is rather bringing Putin to a negotiation table and trying to cut off his war chest, because at the moment, the larger opinion in the European Union, and especially after Trump met Ursula von der Leyen in Scotland, has been that it is this Russian oil economy that is fueling the war in Ukraine. And that is why, in an attempt to bring Putin further to much more favorable terms on the negotiation table. Trump is likely to use this oil imports of India as a key leverage against Russia. Now, India and Russia have a historic, special, privileged global partnership. So it is going to be very interesting on vis-a-vis how India falls into the entire picture. But clearly, it seems that India's Russian oil imports are more of a collateral damage casualty in the larger equation between Ukraine and Russia vis-a-vis the negotiations that are going. Interestingly, China is the highest oil importing nation from Russia as it stands. But US has been very, very cautious into increasing the tariff on China. At the moment, Brazil and India are the highest tariff nations in the entire world at about 50%. And again, it was given out by the US advisor Peter Navarro to President Trump, who last week said that it is very difficult to tariff China more because at certain point, it will start hurting the US economy as well. And I think a similar logic applies to India as well. So to what extent will the United States go is something that remains to be seen. But at the moment, these statements are largely posturing ahead of the mega meeting coming up tomorrow in Anchorage, Alaska. Back to the studio. Meanwhile, we are also joined by Eric on the broadcast. Eric, I would also like to weigh in your opinion on this matter as to how do you see this entire situation coming up. Is this really a conflict vis-a-vis the tariffs between India and Russia? Or do you also, beg your pardon, US and India? Or is India becoming a collateral in the larger equation vis-a-vis Trump and Russia negotiations?
I'm inclined to agree with your perspective, where it's a tactic to choke the Russia war chest. And India was doing business as usual, and they got caught up in the middle of it, and President Trump didn't like it, and it caused a little friction there. But I think at the end of the day, this isn't a personal thing with the United States and India. It's hey, we need to get Russia to stop escalating these tensions over here in the Ukraine. We need to get this war stopped, and we need everybody's cooperation to do it. So I think that's where we're at with that. So I agree with your statements that this is just a choking of the Russia war chest.
Indeed, Eric, thank you for your perspective. Back to the studio, Antara. Those are the latest updates that we are tracking vis-a-vis the new fresh statement coming from US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
Well, absolutely. These are certainly uncertain times, Kritha. Thank you for getting us those updates. Thank you, Kritha. And